looked into a program to get your doctorate.
Yes.
And at this point, you were working at South Carolina
South Carolina State at the time.
Right. So you decided to get your doctorate in business administration.
Yes.
This for you, however, became a defining moment, so to speak, on which you began to build your research interests. Talk to me about what happened during your, while you were studying for your doctorate, how it helped shape your pursuit of international research.
Okay. Again, at this time, I was working at South Carolina State University. I was an extension agent. Mm-hmm. And again, I was in community development. So we would go out, we would help small businesses, you know, that sort of thing. We would go out, help towns, do charrettes. We did a lot of different things dealing with community development. But one thing I saw was globalization was coming. Mm-hmm. And it just started talking about going global. People have to think global, that sort of thing. Now, me being, I consider myself a lifetime learner. Now I want to go on and pursue my doctorate. Now I was at my master's, and then I was in a place of higher ed. Mm-hmm. When you're in a place of higher education, they stress education. Right. So not only me, but you know, people, my mentors, and people like, I was like, Whiteside, man, you know, you're really bright. You need to go back to school. You need to get your doctorate, that sort of thing. And that's kind of where it stopped, but they didn't tell me what to get or that sort of thing. You just need to get your doctorate. So I found myself looking like, what area do I need to go into? You know, then I saw this DBA versus a PhD. You know, what's the difference? And as I looked into the program, your DBA was more of a clinician, more so than your PhD was in philosophy and those kind of things. So I'm like, okay, I don't want to get a PhD. You know, I want to get a DBA. So once I made that decision, it was what major. And it was, you know, DBA is in management. They have all those different things. But international business stuck out to me because international business is what really shapes economies and those kind of things. So I'm like, hey, I want to major in international business. Well, as I narrowed down my three choices, who had DBAs in international business, it was University of Illinois at Chicago. Mm-hmm. It was University of Southern Mississippi. And then it was University of Sarasota. So I applied to all three. University of Chicago called and said, we like your credentials, but we have our next two cohorts are already full. You're going to have to wait 2 years before you can start. I'm like, I can't wait 2 years. I'll be halfway done with the program. So Southern Mississippi then responded. We like your credentials. We want to give you an admission, but you can't start for another year. And you know me being me, I'm a now kind of person. Yeah, that's not as sad. But well, University of Sarasota was a small school in Sarasota, Florida. Mm-hmm. And they said, hey, we can take you in our next cohort coming up in a couple of months, you know. So I said, well, let me go down and visit the school. I went down to Sarasota, I visited, I spoke with them. And again, it was a small school. But the thing that didn't deter me was they were accredited by, you know, the Southern Association, just like South Carolina State and all the schools in South Carolina, Clemson, and all the other schools. So I knew the degree would be accepted. And so I made the decision to go to University of Sarasota. So I'm in the program is nice. And one unique thing about that program that I'm glad I chose was in international business, you had to, it was required that you do international projects and travel internationally. Mm-hmm. It was a requirement. It was not required in the other programs that I applied to. So that was a big plus. And me not being out of the country, you know, thought that was a big deal. So I entered the program, and it's going well, and we're just about to embark on my first international trip. Mm-hmm. And the school is sold to Augusty University. Mm-hmm. So Augusty is a private institution that's expanding across the country, and they actually sold the school. Right. So now everybody was, man, you know, all my friends and everybody in the program were, and it was a lot of foreign people, mm-hmm. But all the local people from the United States were panicking. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, you have a University of Sarasota, now it's Augusty University, going to be a part of a satellite of all the other schools, and they talked about the Pluma Mills, and I mean, all these conversations kind of came up. You know, so I'm like, okay, now as I listened to my foreign friends, they was just like, hey, man, it's accredited. I'm not going to make that big of a deal because, again, it's international business. Again, what are you trying to use your degree for? What are you trying to use it for? So subsequently, I decided to stay. And I think another reason was I was 2 years in. So there's only 2 more to go.
You're already invested.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay. But when I researched it and saw that it was still accredited by SACS, then I was okay. All my fears went down. And I'm glad I did that because my first international trip ended up being my dissertation chair, was Dr. Gordana Pasakovic. And she was really dynamic. And the first country I visited outside of the U.S. was Czech Republic. And we went to Czech Republic to do an international trip and subsequently went to Russia. And that was really just eye-opening for me.
Right.
And, I encourage all my students right now. Right now, I push all our students and our professors to, if nothing else, present internationally. So the students can get the exposure and just see how other people live. It really broadens your perspective.
Cultural experience.
Exactly. So as I come back, I finish my paper, everything's going well. But my next international trip comes. Now, Dr. Pasakovic ended up being my dissertation chair, and she holds full professorships at August University of Sarasota now. She has a full professorship at University of Belgrade. She's from Belgrade. And it was really interesting being in her course because her country is in civil war as I was going through the program. So she gave real life experiences about losing family members, of family members being on both sides of the issues and those kind of things. So really great insight from Dr. Pasakovic. And so she holds professorships like at the University of Belgrade and Augusty and in South America. And so she teaches a semester here, semester here, semester here. Real great insight. So the next person I think was really influential in my program was Dr. Prosper Bernard. And that was my last project. Now, subsequently, I went to 13 different countries during the program. Great from Central America to South America to Europe to Asia. I mean, you name it, we went. And again, it was a true international business program that you on the ground internationally and not just learn about it through theory. So, but with Dr. Bernard, he does extensive business in China. He's actually written several books doing business in China, and he actually helped companies who were trying to get their feet in the door in China to do business. He consults with them to get them in the country. So going there, we was on a 2-week research trip, and we ended up...
In China?
Well, we started in Japan.
Okay.
And from Japan went to Thailand.
Okay.
And from Thailand we ended up in China.
Gotcha.
And made the trip back through all the countries back. But in China, my project my group was working with an Apple company. And this Chinese Apple company produced 25% more apples than they could sell. It just spoiled. They couldn't sell them in China and that sort of thing. So our project, which I led, I was a project leader, was to come up with a way for them to make profit off of those apples. This sparked my current research right now because doing my research, what I found was, what we actually came up with was this. One, they couldn't get into the U.S. because of our USDA standards at the time. Okay. But they could get into the EU if they refined it into applesauce.
Gotcha.
So we helped them write a business plan and subsequently put all the things in place for them to make the apples value added. Now they became applesauce from China that was sold into EU. I got an A on the paper, by the way, A on the project, and they think this made a whole lot of money. But that turned me on to international research and international agricultural research. And one thing that came up during that was exchange rates. And that was a big deal in trying to look at getting into what sections of the world and all those kind of things. And I think that'll come up later. But that kind of set my whole compass of my research that I research today, international agricultural research. But subsequently after that, again, the company was successful. They went on, Dr. Bernard checks in with me. He tries to get me to this day to go to China with him and do certain projects, but my schedule just don't allow me to do it. But I did commit to going with him next year and working on a project. So in 2019, I will be returning with Dr. Bernard to work on another project and do things with that. But Dr. Bernard was the second person on my chair, and his grandfather was a missionary in China. That's how he got exposed to China at an early age, you know, in the 40s and 50s. So he's always gone back. So my program, I guess to wrap this up, my program was really, really dynamic and really, really great for me. Taught me a lot. It showed me a lot. The poverty I saw across the world was so intense that when you come back, it's really nothing that we should complain about in this country. Now, we have our debates and we talk about, you know, life and that sort of thing, but from a poverty standpoint, our standard of living is so high compared to everyone else. Our poor people, the humble beginnings I came from, is nothing compared to what people fight with, you know, what they fight on a daily basis. From even being in China, across from our hotel, I watched people in this dirty river taking water out to cook with and wash their clothes, and you're looking at the trash and stuff, you know, going through the river. You know, they tell us not to give money to the kids, 'cause all the kids are out begging when we got off of the train. Because if you give them money, their parents will let them go to school because they're making money to do that. So they're sending their kids out to beg for money. I felt so sorry for them that there's one particular time we got off a train in Zhuchao. We was in Zhuchao going to the university there to do the research for the Apple company. And a kid came up to me and he just looked so bad, man. It broke my heart, man. You know, so I gave him some money. Oh, that wasn't a good idea. It was a good idea. I think that would help him. But when I turned around, the whole crowd was around me. And I was like, I mean, it was like, you know, like, I mean, really suffocating me. The police had to come and fight their way through the crowd to get me to the actual cars to go because I had given her money. Everybody was just looking for, like, they thought maybe I was some dignitary somewhere, and they saw me give the guy some money, and man, it was just like, man. So that's when they had the conversation with us, like, hey, do not, I know it breaks your heart, but do not do it. Do not do it. So all in all, my international experience is really been great. You know, last week I just got back from Mexico, and I was in Mexico last week, and we was down there talking about international collaborations, international research in Guadalajara. And Mexico is really primed and ready to do a lot of things. Now, the thing that worried me about my trip and talking about China is I saw the Chinese there, and they were there trying to get trade deals and things like that done with Mexico. And the underlying issue, I think, from our country that we got to deal with is China. China's that big bad wolf around the corner.
It's definitely positioning itself.
And they're doing that. And I know this is probably outside of what you asked me about, but I want to say this, and then you can go ahead and whatever else you want to do.
You're certainly passionate about international research.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you the thing that really caught my attention. The deals that the Chinese are doing, they require that the deals are in Chinese yen. Let me tell you what that does. The international monetary standard is built on the dollar. And if China are doing all their deals in the yen, they're trying to move the international standard to the yen. That's going to be a real hit to our economy, you know, our way of life, you know, and those kind of things. So we got a real fight on our hands to fight China off. So with that, I end right there. But that just kind of stood out to me when I was in Mexico last week.
Well, definitely, Dr. Whitesides, in our next segment, we'll talk a little bit more about your research, your current research project that you're working on. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Liz.